Hi everyone, welcome back to Innovation Obsessed. My name is Joanna Small, and today we're exploring the transformative role of artificial intelligence in the high-stakes sectors of security and transportation. Joining me are Patrick from Usto and Chris from Optum, leaders dedicated to ensuring safety and optimizing systems that millions rely on every day. Patrick, Chris, it's great to have you with us. If you can give a short introduction of yourself, that would be great. Patrick, let's start with you.
Okay, I'm Patrick Welsh. Very happy to be here. Thank you. I'm the GM for Usto in the Americas. We are helping people protect their customers, and we've been doing this for a decade.
Yeah, likewise, Joanna. Thanks for having me on. Patrick, great to virtually meet you as well. My name is Chris Torrance. I lead strategy at a company called Optum based in Dallas, Texas, although I happen to be in Chicago. We are a software, SaaS, cloud-based technology company that specializes in optimization across various modes of transportation logistics.
Perfect. So, both companies operate in environments where failure is not an option. So let's start with, how do we approach innovation in such high stakes sectors in these different companies? So Chris, I'm going to start with you. What's your approach to innovation at Optum?
Yeah, I had to unpack this one in a minute. You know what? Again, streamlining it down to where we focus, again, supply chain, even under that umbrella, more of logistics and transportation. Joanna, you're absolutely right. We are the backbone of not just commerce, of moving goods, and there's also a people component to some of the projects we're involved with. So innovation is something that's very near and dear to me, but we take a very realistic approach when we work in these various companies and have to understand exactly and try to meet them where they are today, and then have roadmap of things that we look forward to in the future. Never for a moment, underestimating the importance of safety, public trust, but also kind of balancing that, also the act of leveraging technology such as AI and automation in conjunction with the human capital side of things. And I think that's probably a theme we'll further discuss today, but something that is truly a harmonization and balancing act that I strive to achieve more and more each day.
They're good points, Chris. We've been at this for 10 years, and when we think about innovation in the transportation space, we do a lot with airports, train stations, all over the world. Keeping the ridership safe is important because it's important to revenue. Revenue helps keep those drivers employed. So it's kind of a cycle that has to stay safe for people to want to ride or be part of the transportation hubs. From an innovation perspective, being able to provide our capabilities in AI at the edge is something we've spent the last few years really obsessed and innovating. We have the ability to, as an example, run on a bus, right? To bring this type of technology, cellular remote on a physical bus or a train, to bring a level of protection to the ridership that was previously unattainable.
So let's build on innovation by switching gears to AI in the line haul, drop-off, and pickup process. Protecting drivers and goods has to be a key concern. I understand drivers are facing threats like cargo threats, hijacking, trailer tampering, access breaches, assault, and more. So in your views, both of you, I'll ask you to answer this. How can AI enhance the safety and satisfaction of end users like truck drivers and security guards? Chris, let's start with you.
Yeah, from my perspective, I mean, often we're human, right? So we have this human brain that is extremely capable of doing things as humans in general. However, we're not actually the greatest at math, it turns out. So when we talk about an age now where data it's worth its weight in gold or oil or anything else, I mean, you could argue it's the most powerful thing out there. Data is interpreted into knowledge and insights. And I think for what we do, we want to ensure that we're leveraging the sheer amount of information that, again, a human brain typically isn't capable of processing. We have inherent bias. We have our own preconceived notions of things. So again, I think this proliferation of technology, including AI, is enabling the human element to become much more powerful. It's providing analytics and insights that, whether you're applying it to, in my case, it's an optimization play across, again, mobility and transportation. Absolutely, there's safety issues that we have to consider that I think is, again, going to enable the human driver behind a semi, train conductors, pilots, you name it. This at their fingertips, things that otherwise you had to kind of maybe go on gut intuition, gut feel, et cetera. But again, I think that these are things that for the past my 20, 30 years in the space just haven't evolved nearly at the pace that we're seeing today. So when it comes to, the overall, the fraud topic you talk about, and I'll let Patrick kind of chime in on this a bit, but certainly something, cybercrime, breaches, it has become more and more prevalent, especially in the last few years. So I think that's another thing that from a cybersecurity perspective, safety, all those things, again, we're allowing machines to kind of do some of those calculations, if you will, again, enabling us at a moment's notice to provide us with all the sheer amount of information. And not only that, the analytics behind it, so we can make decisions that factor in safety, efficiency. Again, this is the core of what we do here at Optum. So again, you could go in a lot of directions on that, but I think that as at its core, that's where I see advanced technologies really coming in as a complementary type solution to making human decisions be that much more robust. So Patrick, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well.
Yep, no, it's a great point. A lot of people are looking for that data to be centralized so they can do analytics against it. You mentioned math, we do math really well. Putting that Jetson into something like a logistics truck where the cargo is pretty valuable, right? You want to protect the driver, you also want to protect the cargo. So data that would be important in that scenario is who's casing or following my truck, right? If the driver is unarmed and the cargo is very valuable, the data can help protect the cargo plus the driver, right? So I can see, this particular car with these people in it have been following these 3 different routes over the last month. We probably are going to have, some type of issue if we're not proactive in protecting that driver. So we see a lot of need for data to then be data laked or warehoused, and then for systems like yours to go across them to give the insights and the analytics back to the business.
Yeah, and I would just quickly add to that, Patrick. Great point. I was just having a conversation earlier today with folks in the asset, massive enterprise asset trucking world, and we were talking about just this. And we're looking at the cyber threats aren't going away, and a lot of us have deemed that it's really a game of cat and mouse. We even went so far as to say there is no. Can you really guarantee at 100% level that there won't be a breach on your perimeter, because you're only as strong as your weakest link, and we're talking about supply chain with multiple parties involved, multiple integrations. So again, we were talking about how insurance is real. It's become an underwriter's game, and the amount of liability and risk they're willing to take. And so what that's done in turn is forced a lot of transportation companies and providers to make sure they're checking all these boxes. And to Patrick's point, there's, this is where I think machines, AI, and computational solutions of sorts can help ensure that they're doing everything they can in terms of best practice, because we all know what happens when there's breaches. We've seen it day in and day out. And again, I don't see that's a trend that's going away anytime soon. So
that's a great point. I think we're seeing the cyber realm and the physical realm kind of intersect a little bit more. So people are less afraid because they've got their systems on lockdown, they're in the cloud, they're in a data center somewhere, nobody's ever going to see them. That's less of their issue. Their issue is at a bank branch, right? I've got people who are coming in pretending to be a janitor just to get access to an open vault door or, some other system. We see it in healthcare. We see it across all the verticals. They want to authenticate and be assured that the person that's holding that badge is in fact the person that was trained, certified, background checked, and should be there.
Great point. And I love the facial recognition. And Patrick, you make an excellent point. I think that living in Chicago, we see, unfortunately, quite a bit of crime and instances like you just outlined. And I'm loving to see this technology start to kind of take it to a new heights in terms of just being able for the recognition aspect. And again, so many applications across security, and I'm excited to see how much more advanced it's just getting by the day.
Definitely, all really good points. And Chris, something you touched on was ethical AI, and that's a hot topic across industries. We're obviously hearing that day in, day out. So there's a lot of debate about how we implement these technologies responsibly, especially when they impact public safety and privacy. So how do each of you ensure that your advancements are implemented responsibly?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's going to be a topic that we continue to hear. There's always, as I say, a duality with some of these technologies, right? There's whether you're, I'm a military veteran, Air Force veteran. I saw a lot of use cases where we could eliminate or at least alleviate the casualty aspect around humans by leveraging advanced drones to potentially get ahead and have that vision to see what we're about to engage with and interact with. At the same token, that could also be weaponized. Similarly speaking, in the bio space, right? The cure for cancer could be waiting around the corner through these technologies, but there are always a bad actor that could, again, the duality could flip it and create a bionuclear type weapon that could be disastrous, right? So I think we absolutely see the need to maintain somewhat at the federal level, right? I think this is the world leaders really need to come together and see that this movement's going, as Elon himself said, the genie's out of the bottle. It's not going back in. So how do we employ and leverage certain amounts of governance, the ethical responsibilities? What is our moral obligation? What is the public concern, that trust? These are topics that I think will be discussed at the UN and, again, like I said, at the federal level. Us as a company, again, from what our own just vantage point, we're certainly aware of that. And you look at autonomous vehicles, right? It goes back, another example of all the benefits it bring. It only takes one bad accident and that they blame it on a robot or an autonomous vehicle that was potentially, hijacked, so to speak, by another bad actor. So again, I think there's a lot more questions and answers around that governance, but I think that this is a conversation you're going to see well into the future, because it is critical and imperative that we use these technologies to the best of humankind, not the worst.
I would just say that it's not something you do as part of a certification, right? It's not part of ISO. You do it one time, you do it once a year. For us, 10 years ago, we made it part of our operating system. So as a company, we're looking at tens of millions of people to train a database, to train an algorithm, to teach a neural network to not have bias. So you make sure that your data set is representative of the world. And that's one of the ways, and that's how you start. You go all the way through, who am I going to sell this to, right? If you believe in ethical AI, you would never sell it, either for a duration that it would get out of control, or to someone who, after one election, could turn the technology on the people, right? So it becomes part of you as a vendor, a supplier, as a software company. It has to be part of your operating system. And for us, it is. We won't sell it where we know there's even a potential that could be used the wrong way. We won't allow our technology to be used for more than 6 months at a time that we don't get with the customer, and put our team around it to make sure, as you said, governance, that you are using it in the right way. And we will confirm that positively as a company as part of the way we do business.
So something both of you mentioned previously is real time, and a shift that's happening in both of our fields is moving from reactive to proactive. Many systems today are designed to react after a problem arises. How do your technologies help shift this paradigm towards preventing issues before they occur? Chris, let's start with you again.
Yeah, this has been, again, we've gone from an age where the reactive mentality was really a default setting. We didn't have a whole lot more to go on. I think as these technology advance, we're getting to more of the predictive analytics side of it, becoming prescriptive. But with that, the challenges I really see, again, this is just strictly from my vantage point, is we're at this interesting cross-section of where new technology, modernized tech stacks, are still having to rely on more antiquated, older technologies, and they have to be able to integrate and communicate. And I think that's one of the challenges we see is there's risk involved. Some of these technologies haven't been proven with extreme scale yet, so there's hesitancy. There's pushback amongst the human operators saying, that's a whole other discussion, but what are the implications of AI taking my job? And this is no secret. There are an array of emotions that come out with this. So again, I look at there's technical challenges relative to integrations, and then there's other more cultural shifts, change management that needs to still be occurring. And I look at the onus falls on technology vendors, key stakeholders and companies that we engage with to make sure that messaging really involves everyone, not just those at the top, but those end users, and operators that are saying, hey, if we're willing to take this leap of faith, what level of assurance can we have that we'll be gainfully employed? And I think that's, again, it's going to take a village of sorts to be able to have these conversations and explain the how, the why. We know it's going that direction. I often say technology has made us all redundant since the beginning of time, whether we acknowledge that or not. So these new technology, I hope, will present opportunities for us as humans to really focus on things that I deem as more human-centric activities and things that machines, frankly, aren't great at. So I think we're still early in that, and a great topic, right? There are tremendous amounts of challenges, but again, having those conversations and making everyone feel a part of those conversations is imperative in my view.
Yep, it's a great point. There's certain things that technology, as it gets faster and cheaper, will disrupt. It just happens, right? You're not rewinding your cassette tapes and taking them back to Blockbuster, right? Point noted. But good AI gives data to the human that's making the decision. So if you think about the security guard that's tasked with protecting a 100,000 square foot facility, the company doesn't want to hire 3 more. But they know that now they are doing a certain product that they are more of a target or a threat. They don't want to keep adding staff. They can add artificial intelligence to give that one person more information so they can do that job better without having to add more. So there will be disruptions. I think the right AI will give data to people so that they can do the job they do today better.
Yeah, Patrick, I actually, I'm a big proponent of the phrase of, AIs will not replace humans per se, but rather humans leveraging AI will replace humans not leveraging AI. So again, I think you summed it up nicely in those examples, and there's, endless use cases that I can apply that same mindset to. So great point.
Definitely. So we just talked a little bit about implementation, but one of the biggest challenges in both of our industries, in transportation and security, is dealing with legacy systems and still the need to be able to work with them. So how do you approach integrating cutting edge AI with these legacy systems without causing major disruptions?
Yeah, from my perspective, that's a challenge I deal with every day. And I think we touched on it a little earlier. I think it all goes back to just meeting companies where they are today. And there's absolutely a lot of room on the roadmap for bleeding edge technologies. But in my industry, we're a little lagging overall, right? We're talking supply chain. And again, I talk about it is the backbone of global commerce. Yet, from a technological perspective, we're still fairly far behind in terms of other industries, other segments, et cetera. So I think, again, it's an ongoing of, for me, it's a challenge to go, hey, what are the use cases? What is the business case that we really want to solve for? And then meshing that on top of what are the current capabilities today. And it's really more of an incremental approach. I think there's this false notion that, it's binary. You just turn on an AI switch and it's the magic bullet that solves everything. And that is the furthest thing from the truth in my experience. So I think, again, it's more about having that human element and get involved in the discussion, understanding where humans best fit into that equation. And then, again, there's mundane and repeatable activities that I used to do 20 years ago that there's no way that's a good use of my time. So I think I have to constantly, at the end user level, especially in my world, be able to kind of go in there with a very neutral position and not try to force AI down their throat, because I assure you there's a massive resistance of change in any scenario. And so for us, we're just, again, going back, how do we come to a mutual agreement that this is where these technologies just make sense? No one's arguing that this is a good use of their time. Again, these are exercise and activities that people typically don't enjoy anyway. So again, how do we marry that and balance that where we're coming up to a mutual agreement of, yeah, this makes sense. Let's keep this conversation going forward without getting over our skis. So Patrick, you may see it from a slightly different perspective, but fundamentally, that's something, again, I see on a daily basis.
No, very similar. So for 20 years, logistics companies have struggled with EDI transactions. They did them on mainframes, they did them on servers, now they're doing them on the web, right? They adapt. And when you look at AI, it's no different. Good AI has the ability to integrate with legacy systems without the need to rip them out and replace them, right? So we spent a lot of time over the years developing a very robust API that allows us to talk to anybody that needs this data, right? So our motion is put this over top and allow it to augment your existing systems so that you don't have to touch or replace any of them. And then they can do that over time.
Yeah, it's great. And I think that's something we need to, automation is again another word that's thrown out a lot, but I think augmentation is probably the next realistic phase. So where they're working hand in hand, machines and humans. And yes, we're going to agree that at some point machines are just faster and more productive. And from just a sheer business sense, right? We're all in this to try to turn a profit. And to Patrick's earlier point, it's going that direction. When I talk to leaders that say, if you can help me reduce my operational expense by, eliminating the need for massive amounts of headcount to do operational tasks that, again, machines just do better. We all agree to that. So I think that's a great point. I think the reality, though, I saw a stat where, I can't remember it was a Gallup study. I think that, maybe only 1 out of 10 employees is using AI at work at least once a week. So that means, again, 7 out of 10, give or take, they're not using it. And why is that? It goes back to that change management. So as we're in this kind of this interesting period where we're trying to mesh the best of humans with machines, we've got to, as vendors, as buyers, sellers, you name it, we've got to come together and make sure that that experience is being conveyed in a way that every stakeholder sees the upside, and we address their concerns without making this friction, because resistance to change is just that. So no matter how great your technology is, it will quickly become shelfware if you haven't done a great job or you've underestimated just the sheer amount of work it takes for that change management process.
So, of course, pushing for proactive systems isn't without its challenges. What are the biggest hurdles you face in converting stakeholders to adopt these proactive measures instead of sticking with their tried and true legacy systems?
Yeah, from my perspective, I mean, we're going through a generational shift as well. I think we need to call that out. I'm not the youngest spring chicken over here, but I also deal with full ends of the spectrum. So when I talk to the younger generations come in, they're looking at some of these old systems Patrick alluded to is what is this? Right, written in old programming languages that are pretty defunct at this point. They look on their smartphone and say that my phone's is sexier than your entire ERP or your system of record. So I think that there's generational shifts happening right now, and a lot of the more old guard mentality is for a number of reasons just more apprehensive to kind of go down this path. They're saying, I may be retiring in the next 5 years. Why would I ever want to rock the boat? And then there's risk associated. What if it doesn't work? And sometimes that's the real hurdle is, conveying to them is, risk reward. That's something that I think every executive I engage with is they're putting a lot of money into these things, or they're putting their reputation on the line. And to be honest, a lot of these projects have not come to fruition. Think of all the promises made around autonomous and AI and other extremely cool and advanced technologies 5-10 years ago that haven't come to fruition. So there's a level of skepticism, I think, that's still very pervasive. And again, I think there's a lot of dynamics that have to be discussed. And it's not a binary answer I would offer.
Yep. Yeah. Not all laggards are Luddites, right? So they would do it if they weren't using the money for something else in their business. So if I'm not experiencing that pain at a level 10, then I know I need to do it, just not right now, right? So they have to assess what is the real risk to the business, what is the opportunity for operational improvement, and then they have to make that call. So the easier we can make it for them to adopt this technology, the more likely it is that they'll do it sooner, not later.
Yeah, I love, Patrick, keeping it simple, stupid, right? The KISS method. I think I work with some really smart academics, PhD caliber folks from the most prestigious institutions in the world. But yet in a space like logistics, trucking, and transportation, that can often work against you, because most of these practitioners, that's just a level that can frankly be considered just academic jargon that's theoretical. So I think that's another element that I'm always striving to get as a practitioner myself, is bridging the gap between theory and what is really feasible. What can we operationalize today? What is the absorption rate and the speed of that absorption in any given industry? And I can only speak to my own, but again, things that often get overlooked because there's a polarizing spectrum of technologists and more of the conservative traditionalists. And it's like I always say, you're both right and you're both wrong. So again, how do we find that middle ground to where we all just recognize the upside without, again, over exaggerating what's theoretically possible that is not indicative of how businesses operate today?
Yep. And one of the big things we did is push to the cloud. Right, so when we talk about operational efficiency, if I make you update a server every year, that's a cost that you don't want. Right? If I can securely get you to the cloud, then I eliminate that cost. So operationally, it's going to be better. It's going to save you some money. And then you're not looking at other dependencies. Do I have to have labor that's going to stick around and maintain the server, patch it, update it? Or can I get live in an hour using a cloud edge type deployment? So that's one of the ways to stay proactive and try to get things done faster, where a business will actually adopt it.
Yeah, and a lot of these folks are looking for street cred. So again, in my industry, you've got the various, it's like the crossing the chasm reference, right? You've got your early adopters. Typically, they have a more forward-thinking mindset. They have budget. They're more just, they're willing to take those risks. But the vast majority of this market and industry I play in is kind of looking to those forward thinkers to say, well, if you figure it out, then we'll be the we'll be the late majority to the party here, and we'll get on board. But again, relative to my space, there's certainly a lot of folks, and you make a great point. Even on-prem systems are still there. There's tools like the AS400, Patrick, that are still alive and well. And we talked about cyber earlier, like who wants to crack into an AS400, right? But you talk about the cloud. It's again, what is the upside? What's the risk, and what's the reward? And those are still conversations taking place throughout my industry on a daily basis. And I honestly don't know that there's a definitive answer yet. But as I say, when you look at the overall, if we use the analogy of a baseball game, we talk about technology in my industry. I mean, at best, we're maybe at bottom of the first inning, top of the second inning. But it's what's crazy is the acceleration, the speed of advancement. So again, if you're not getting on board or thinking about these things, it will be a cost of doing business, and trading partners. If you're still living 20 years ago, that could be very detrimental to your business survival.
Well, and your competitors are going to do it, and they're the ones that are going to put you out of business. And you're seeing that now with AI faster than any time previously. It's happening in months, quarters, not years.
Well, thank you both for your insights today. This was a really great conversation. Chris, thank you for joining us. Is there anything you'd like to add or something we didn't cover?
No, I would say thank you, Joanna, for having Patrick. Great again to meet you virtually. And I really appreciate the opportunity to come on. These are conversations that should be had and are being had. But again, it's these type of opportunities that enable conversation to take place for a broader audience. So again, appreciate you having me on.
Yep, same.
Perfect.
If people need more information, they can check us out on the website, and we're happy to help answer any questions they might have.
Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. Stay tuned. Every 2 weeks, another episode of Innovation Obsessed, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks.